There's been a lot of recent controversy regarding the oldest, largest, and most mysterious site in all of human history.
Göbekli Tepe is a site so old it shatters everything we thought we knew about human civilization. Yet, despite its importance, only 5% of it has been excavated, even though it was discovered over 30 years ago. Critics such as Jimmy Corsetti claim that mainstream archaeology is deliberately slowing excavation at the site, and even claim protected trees are being purposefully planted over the ruins to disrupt excavation.
So what's going on here?
Dated at approximately 11,600 years old, Göbekli Tepe is by far the oldest megalithic site ever discovered on Earth. It predates the accepted date of the Great Pyramids by over 7,000 years, and is nearly twice as old as the already mysterious Stonehenge. But here's where it gets even crazier. Göbekli Tepe isn't just older, it's 50 times larger than Stonehenge, covering an absolutely mind-blowing 20 acres. And despite its sheer scale, it's the very definition of prehistoric. We have no idea who built it, how they built it, or even when.
All we do know is that for some unknown reason, it was likely deliberately buried around 10,000 years ago.
Now, we were taught in school that the first ancient civilizations didn't emerge until 6,000 years ago, in ancient Sumer. But the discovery of Göbekli Tepe in 1994 totally upended this mainstream view of the human timeline. Before its discovery, we would have been told that a site like this was totally impossible. But the mystery goes deeper. The site contains at least 20 massive circular enclosures, only 4 of which have been excavated so far. These enclosures consist of nearly 200 huge T-shaped limestone pillars, most of which are still buried underground but have been identified by geophysical surveys. Many of these pillars are 20 feet tall, and some weigh as much as 10 metric tons. Some unfinished or fallen pillars discovered at the site suggest even larger ones, possibly exceeding 50 metric tons. Many of these pillars are decorated by unbelievably intricate carvings of animals, abstract symbols, and possible astronomical alignments. Depictions of snakes, scorpions, vultures, foxes, and big cats, many of which aren't local to the area, suggest knowledge of faraway places, as well as symbolic or religious meaning. And just look at these carvings. This level of skill requires incredible sophistication and dedication. This clearly isn't some primitive society. They were undoubtedly unbelievably knowledgeable, and many argue that some carvings, like those on Pillar 43, may represent constellations or a record of a past cosmic event. On top of this, the sheer levels of planning, organization, and logistics required to construct an enormous site like this is astounding. So who created it? How did they create it, and why? What prehistoric culture could have possibly built this project? Remember, the mainstream view is that this was the work of pre-agricultural hunter-gatherers. But how did they transport these gigantic pillars that, to reiterate, weigh up to 10 metric tons, possibly up to 50 metric tons? This only becomes more intriguing when you realize that Göbekli Tepe came over 5,000 years before the invention of the wheel. I would argue that this doesn't quite add up.
Now, whatever you think about Göbekli Tepe, you surely agree it is an absolutely fascinating ancient site. You may subscribe to the mainstream view that this site was simply the work of a group of hunter-gatherers, and that's fine. Or you may be like me and think that this site suggests the presence of a far more advanced culture than is traditionally accepted, and that the hunter-gatherer explanation is only there to sort of shoehorn this site into the traditional timeline. Either way, what we can all surely agree on is that this site is incredibly interesting, and must be worthy of further exploration as quickly as possible. Right?
Despite being discovered over 30 years ago, only 5% of Göbekli Tepe has been excavated so far. Weirdly, this is the same amount as had been excavated in 2011, 14 years ago. To be clear, work is still going on, excavating the already uncovered parts of Göbekli Tepe, but the overall excavation figure has remained consistent since at least 2011, meaning no real progress in uncovering the rest of Göbekli Tepe has been made since then.
But why is this? Surely the most mysterious, largest and oldest ancient site in the world should be the subject of intense investigations to see what secrets the other 95% of the site reveals. I mean, isn't this in the interest of all of humanity, to try and uncover the secrets of our ancient past?
Take the Rosetta Stone, for example. This one artifact, discovered in 1799, completely transformed our understanding of ancient Egyptian civilization by providing the key to deciphering hieroglyphs. Just imagine if an equivalent artifact was hiding hiding in the unexcavated 95% of Göbekli Tepe. We could learn so much about the true purpose of this mysterious site and the history of human civilization.
So we really should be excavating this site, and we are. But is it true that excavation is deliberately being slowed down, as Jimmy Corsetti and others claim?
Critics argue that the excavation of Göbekli Tepe is being deliberately slowed or suppressed, and suggest that its implications, potentially rewriting human history, are being downplayed. However, it must be said that this argument ignores the reality of modern archaeological methodology. Many major sites take decades or even centuries to fully excavate. Çatalhöyük, a Neolithic settlement in Turkey, was discovered in the 1960s, yet after more than 60 years, only about 5% has been uncovered, just like Göbekli Tepe. Even Pompeii, despite being uncovered in the 18th century, has large sections that remain buried. Göbekli Tepe's slow excavation is standard practice for sites of its scale.
It's definitely frustrating that excavating Göbekli Tepe is taking so long, but I don't think it's because of some conspiracy. I think it's more because archaeologists today prioritize preservation over speed, and are, rightly, being careful with this site. However, having said this, it certainly seems very possible that excavations could be significantly sped up without compromising the requisite levels of care that are correctly required. Considering the incredible significance of Göbekli Tepe, it seems to me like we should be pouring all available funding and resources into learning more about this site, while continuing to uphold standards of preservation. Like, this site should be the priority for archaeology. But this clearly isn't the case, and it's not a technology problem. We live in 2025 and we can definitely excavate it safely, so it must be due to a lack of resources, funding, and a lack of desire to scale up the excavations. But why is this?
The most obvious reason comes down to money. Göbekli Tepe is now one of Turkey's biggest tourist attractions. And who benefits the most? The Dogus Group, a powerful Turkish conglomerate that controls much of the site's tourism industry. In 2018, Dogus Group partnered with UNESCO and the Turkish government to fund conservation efforts at Göbekli Tepe. But let's be real, this wasn't an act of archaeological generosity. Dogus Group owns hotels, resorts, and tourism operations throughout Turkey, and Göbekli Tepe has become a cash cow. In 2018, when Dogus Group took control, Göbekli Tepe was receiving roughly 70,000 visitors a year. By 2024, that figure is at nearly 1 million. It's clear where the priority is, and it isn't archaeology. Excavation costs money. Tourism makes money. This leads me on to my second point. By not scaling up the excavation efforts, the Dogus Group keep most of the site buried, thus maintaining the mystery, increasing tourism, and stretching out the hype for decades. Why rush the discovery of an ancient site when you can turn it into a slow-drip, blockbuster franchise?
Consider it. If Göbekli Tepe remains at this slow pace of excavation, and at the current rate it will take over 100 years, then the mystery remains. And right now it seems like the priority isn't pure research, it's ensuring that the site remains a steady economic engine for the region. And then there's the issue of the trees.
Another strange aspect of Göbekli Tepe's excavation is the tree controversy. A number of trees have been planted around the site, which might seem harmless at first, but there are serious concerns. The problem is that tree roots can penetrate and damage the buried structures, potentially accelerating their decay before they're even excavated. Jimmy Corsetti raises this concern, suggesting that the trees were deliberately planted after excavation began, potentially to obstruct further digging or slow down the process of uncovering the full extent of Göbekli Tepe. He points to the fact that these planted trees belong to a protected species, meaning they cannot legally be cut down once planted. This effectively makes any future excavation of the site even more difficult, perhaps even impossible, without uprooting legally protected trees.
Now, I disagree with Jimmy here. I don't think the trees were deliberately planted to disrupt the site. I find it hard to believe there's really a conspiracy to delay excavations or destroy the ruins. But I do think he makes a very good point about the danger these trees pose. It seems remarkably stupid to plant trees over this site. Luckily, however, it seems his words have taken effect.
In a major new update, the media storm sparked by these criticisms has put renewed attention on Göbekli Tepe, pressuring authorities to address concerns about the impact of tree roots on the site's ancient structures. In response to the growing controversy, Turkish authorities have now begun removing and replanting approximately 1,000 trees, finally acknowledging that their roots were indeed causing damage to the site. The question of why they were planted after the site was already known, though, is still a little perplexing, as was the weird justification from mainstream archaeologists like Flint Dibble.
So the trees are being removed and there's probably no conspiracy. But what's definite is that this is an unbelievably mysterious and fascinating ancient site. A bewildering achievement of our ancestors that no one can explain, and that isn't being prioritized enough. Whether it's about money or controlling the narrative, in my opinion it isn't really acceptable. I really hope that soon excavation attempts can be accelerated, and we can finally start to learn more about this enigma, because it truly is valuable and relevant to us all, every human on Earth. Archaeology's purpose is to teach us about our past, and it feels like this site could hold many answers. Maybe one day the full truth of Göbekli Tepe will be revealed, but for now it stands as a 12,000-year-old enigma, a glimpse into a lost world we may never fully uncover. Let me know what you think in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to my channel.